Emma and Tyler's seemingly perfect marriage unravels when Emma discovers Tyler's affair with his coworker, Madison. As Emma grapples with the betrayal, shocking revelations, and manipulative interference from Madison escalate the tension, forcing Emma and Tyler to confront their deepest flaws. The story dives into themes of infidelity, mistrust, and emotional manipulation, stirring anger and outrage as Tyler's repeated missteps threaten Emma's journey toward healing. With emotions running high and the stakes ever increasing, the characters are left to navigate a minefield of guilt, redemption, and the lingering scars of betrayal. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in. You're about to dive into a story filled with secrets, lies, and a betrayal so sharp it'll leave you stunned. But first, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. We love hearing from our global audience. Now, let's jump into today's story. It was 2016, a sunny spring morning in Portland, Oregon. The city buzzed with its usual charm: food trucks lining the streets, bikers weaving through traffic, and coffee shops serving up steaming lattes to the morning crowd. For Emma Davis, life seemed picture perfect, at least on the surface. Emma was the kind of person who drew others in without even trying. She was in her early 30s, with warm brown eyes and a laugh that could light up any room. Her husband, Tyler, was her high school sweetheart. They'd been married for nearly 10 years and had built a life together that many envied. Tyler was dependable, hardworking, and every bit as devoted as Emma thought a husband should be. Together, they owned a cozy 2-bedroom house on a tree-lined street, the kind of place where neighbors greeted each other by name. Their lives were simple, but happy, or so it seemed. Emma worked as a graphic designer from home, spending her days crafting beautiful layouts and creative designs while sipping her favorite mint tea. Tyler was a construction foreman, his days filled with long hours at bustling work sites. He loved his job, but it often left him coming home tired and craving a quiet evening. But things weren't as perfect as they appeared. Over the past year, a subtle distance had grown between them. Emma chalked it up to the monotony of everyday life. After all, 10 years of marriage came with its challenges. She often brushed off her concerns, convincing herself that Tyler was simply exhausted from work and that their relationship just needed a spark to reignite the flame. Enter Madison. Madison Bennett was everything Emma was not: bold, daring, and unapologetically confident. She was the newest addition to Tyler's construction team, hired as a project manager, with her fiery red hair, piercing green eyes, and a smile that could disarm even the most guarded soul. Madison had a way of commanding attention wherever she went. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, and her quick wit made her a favorite among the crew. Tyler often mentioned her casually during dinner conversations. "Madison came up with a great plan to fix the foundation on the Westwood project," he'd say, or, "Madison's really sharp when it comes to handling clients." Emma noticed these comments but didn't think much of them. Tyler always spoke about his team, and Madison was just another name on the list. But there were signs, small cracks in the facade, that Emma didn't see, or maybe didn't want to see. Tyler started coming home later than usual, blaming deadlines and last-minute project changes. He seemed more distracted, his phone buzzing more often, which he dismissed with a quick, "Just work stuff." Emma wanted to believe him. She trusted Tyler. But as the weeks went by, that nagging feeling in the pit of her stomach grew harder to ignore. One Saturday afternoon, Emma decided to surprise Tyler by dropping off lunch at his work site. She packed his favorite turkey club sandwich and drove over, imagining the smile on his face when he saw her. As she pulled into the dusty lot, her heart sank. Tyler was standing by the scaffolding, talking to Madison. The two of them were laughing, leaning in a little too close, their body language unmistakably intimate. Emma's grip tightened on the steering wheel. She sat there, frozen, watching as Madison playfully swatted Tyler's arm, his chuckle carrying across the lot. For a moment, Emma felt like she couldn't breathe. She told herself she was overreacting. Maybe they were just friendly coworkers, but deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. That night, Tyler came home late again. Emma forced a smile and asked how his day was. He gave her the usual response: "Busy, same as always." Before disappearing into the shower, Emma sat at the kitchen table, staring at her untouched dinner, her thoughts racing. She decided not to confront him, not yet. She needed more than just a gut feeling. Over the next few weeks, Emma started noticing more things. Tyler's cologne lingered a little stronger when he came home, as if he'd reapplied it during the day. A new habit. There were more late nights, more excuses about work. And then, there was his phone, always within arm's reach, never left unattended. One evening, while Tyler was asleep, Emma's curiosity got the better of her. She unlocked his phone, her hands trembling as she scrolled through his messages. At first, everything seemed normal. Texts from coworkers, family, friends. But then she saw a thread with Madison. Her heart sank. The messages weren't explicit, but they were filled with inside jokes, playful banter, and an easiness that felt out of place. There were photos too, selfies Madison had sent, her smile wide and flirty. Tyler's replies were polite, yet there was an undertone that Emma couldn't ignore. She put the phone down, her chest tightening with a mix of anger and hurt. Emma told herself it could still be innocent, that she was reading too much into it, but the seed of doubt had grown into a gnawing suspicion. She decided to confront Tyler the next day. When the moment came, Emma kept her voice steady, her gaze locked on his. "Tyler, is there something going on with Madison?" His reaction was immediate. Too immediate. He laughed nervously, shaking his head. "Of course not, Madison. She's just a coworker." Emma pressed further, her voice rising with emotion. "Then why are you texting her so much? Why do you come home smelling like cologne and late-night meetings that don't add up?" Tyler's face darkened, his tone defensive. "You're overthinking this, Emma. I work long hours, and Madison's part of my team. That's all it is." But Emma wasn't convinced she could see it in his eyes, the way he avoided her gaze, the tension in his shoulders. Something was wrong, and no amount of denial could change that. Emma didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying every interaction she'd seen between Tyler and Madison. His defensive tone, the sudden shift in his behavior. It all felt like pieces of a puzzle that were finally starting to fit together. But Emma needed more than suspicion. If she was going to confront Tyler again, she needed proof. The next morning, Emma decided to take matters into her own hands. She reached out to her best friend, Lauren, someone she could trust completely. Over coffee at their favorite cafe, Emma poured her heart out, recounting everything she had noticed, the late nights, the texts, and that moment at the construction site. Lauren listened intently, her expression growing darker with each detail. "Emma, you need to follow your gut on this. If something feels off, it probably is. You deserve to know the truth." Lauren's words lit a fire in Emma. Together, they devised a plan. Emma would hire a private investigator to look into Tyler's activities. She hated the idea of spying on her husband, but the alternative, living in doubt, was worse. 2 weeks later, Emma received the investigator's first report. The photos hit her like a punch to the stomach. Tyler and Madison were seen leaving a restaurant together, their body language far too intimate for coworkers. There were also messages recovered from Tyler's phone, ones she hadn't seen during her initial snooping. Madison had sent texts late at night, messages like, "Tonight was amazing, I can't stop thinking about you." Emma's hands shook as she read the words. This was it. The confirmation she dreaded but needed. Tyler was having an affair. That evening, Emma confronted Tyler again, this time armed with undeniable evidence. She placed the photos and messages on the dining table and waited for him to come home. When he walked in and saw the evidence, his face went pale. "Care to explain this?" Emma's voice was calm, but her eyes burned with anger. Tyler hesitated, his mouth opening and closing as he tried to find the right words. "Emma, this isn't what it looks like," he stammered. But the guilt in his expression said otherwise. "Don't lie to me, Tyler. I know everything." "How long has this been going on?" He finally broke, sinking into a chair and burying his face in his hands. "It's been a few months," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean for this to happen, Emma, I swear." Emma's heart broke at his confession, but her anger quickly took over. "You didn't mean for it to happen. You didn't mean to betray me, to throw away 10 years of marriage for some fling?" "It's not like that," Tyler said, his tone defensive again. "Madison and I don't want to hear it," Emma snapped, cutting him off. "You've already said enough." For the next few days, Emma avoided Tyler as much as possible. She spent her nights at Lauren's house, trying to process the betrayal, but the pain didn't fade. It only grew sharper. Lauren suggested counseling, but Emma wasn't sure if their marriage could be saved. Meanwhile, Tyler seemed to be struggling too. He called Emma repeatedly, leaving voicemails full of apologies and promises to fix things. He even went as far as cutting ties with Madison, quitting his job, and swearing he would do whatever it took to earn back Emma's trust. But Emma wasn't ready to forgive him. Every time she looked at him, all she could see was the man who had shattered her heart. One night, as Emma sat in Lauren's living room scrolling through her phone, she stumbled upon a support group for people dealing with infidelity. Curious, she joined and began reading the stories others had shared. It was both comforting and heartbreaking to see how many people had been in her shoes. Emma decided to post her own story, keeping it anonymous. Within hours, she received an outpouring of support from strangers who understood her pain. One comment stood out to her. "Remember, healing is for you, not for them. Take your time, but don't let their betrayal define your future." Those words stuck with Emma. She realized that while Tyler's betrayal had caused her immense pain, she had the power to decide what came next. As the weeks went by, Emma began to focus on herself. She started going to yoga classes, something she'd always wanted to try but never made time for. She reconnected with old friends, took on new projects at work, and even adopted a rescue dog named Willow. Slowly but surely, she started to feel like herself again. Tyler, on the other hand, was still trying to win her back. He sent flowers, wrote letters, and even showed up to one of her yoga classes, much to Emma's annoyance. "Tyler, you need to stop," she told him firmly one evening when he showed up at Lauren's house unannounced. "I need space. I need time. And honestly, I don't know if I can ever trust you again." His shoulders slumped, but he nodded. "I understand. I hope you'll give me a chance to make this right." As Emma navigated her new reality, she began to see things more clearly. Tyler's affair had been a betrayal, yes, but it was also a wake-up call. Their marriage hadn't been perfect, and both of them had contributed to the distance that had grown between them. Still, Emma wasn't sure if that realization was enough to save what they had. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below to let us know your thoughts so far. One evening, Emma received a text from Madison. It was unexpected and left her feeling a mix of anger and curiosity. "I owe you an apology. Can we meet?" Emma debated whether or not to respond. Part of her wanted to confront Madison, to unleash the anger she'd been holding back. But another part of her wondered if hearing Madison's side of the story would bring her any closure. In the end, curiosity won out. When Emma arrived at the coffee shop the next day, Madison was already there, looking nervous. She stood as Emma approached, offering a weak smile. "Thank you for coming," Madison said, her voice quiet. Emma didn't return the smile. "You've got 5 minutes." Madison nodded and launched into an apology, explaining how the affair had started and why it had ended. She admitted to pursuing Tyler, claiming she hadn't thought about the consequences until it was too late. "I'm sorry, Emma. Truly, I never meant to hurt you." Emma listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When Madison finished, Emma stood and said simply, "I hope you learned from this." Then she walked away, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Emma's meeting with Madison left her feeling conflicted. While the apology didn't erase the pain, it gave her a sense of closure. She hadn't expected Madison's nervous sincerity hinted at remorse, but Emma wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. If anything, the conversation reignited her determination to take control of her life and decide what she wanted next. A week later, Emma received an invitation she couldn't ignore. Tyler's mother, Diane, was hosting a family dinner and insisted that Emma attend. Diane adored Emma and had no idea about the turmoil brewing in her marriage. Emma considered skipping it, but ultimately decided to go. She wasn't ready to share their problems with the entire family, and a part of her still cared deeply for Diane. When Emma arrived at the house, she was greeted with warm hugs and the smell of Diane's famous pot roast. Tyler was already there, looking sheepish as he avoided Emma's gaze. The tension between them was palpable, but Diane, ever the optimist, seemed oblivious. Throughout dinner, Tyler tried to engage Emma in small talk, but she kept her responses curt. Diane noticed the distance and finally addressed it. "Is everything okay between you two? You've been so quiet tonight." Emma hesitated, glancing at Tyler. His pleading eyes silently begged her to keep their issues private. Taking a deep breath, Emma forced a smile. "We're fine, Diane. Just a bit tired, that's all." The rest of the evening passed uneventfully, but the encounter left Emma drained. On the drive home, Tyler followed her, catching up with her at a red light. He rolled down his window and called out, "Can we talk, please?" Emma sighed but nodded, pulling into a nearby parking lot. Under the harsh glow of the streetlights, Tyler poured his heart out. "Emma, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you in ways I can never take back. But I'm begging you, please give me a chance to make it right." His voice cracked, and for the first time, Emma saw genuine vulnerability in him. He wasn't the confident, composed Tyler she'd married. He was a man broken by his own mistakes. Emma crossed her arms, trying to keep her emotions in check. "Do you even understand what you've done to me? To us? You didn't just cheat, Tyler. You destroyed the trust we built over 10 years. "I know," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't want to lose you, Emma. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Counseling, therapy, anything, just don't give up on us." His words hung in the air, heavy with emotion. Emma didn't respond immediately. Part of her wanted to believe him, to give him the chance he was asking for. But another part of her, the part still reeling from the betrayal, wasn't sure she could ever let go of the pain. "I need time," she finally said, "and you need to prove that you're worth trusting again. Until then, don't push me, Tyler." He nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. "I'll wait as long as it takes." As days turned into weeks, Emma began to see small changes in Tyler. He started going to therapy on his own and shared his sessions with her, showing a level of transparency she hadn't seen in years. He stopped calling and texting excessively, giving Emma the space she'd asked for. He even reached out to Lauren to ask for advice, a move that surprised Emma when Lauren mentioned it casually over coffee. "He seems serious about fixing things," Lauren admitted, though her tone was cautious. "But that doesn't mean you have to forgive him, Emma. This is about what you need, not what he wants." Emma appreciated Lauren's honesty. She wasn't ready to make any decisions yet, but seeing Tyler's efforts gave her a glimmer of hope. Meanwhile, Emma's own journey continued. She'd been attending a local support group for people dealing with infidelity, and the connections she'd made there were invaluable. One member, a woman named Clara, shared a story eerily similar to Emma's. Clara's advice resonated deeply. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning how to live with the scars and deciding what kind of life you want moving forward. Emma clung to those words as she navigated her feelings. She wasn't sure if she and Tyler could rebuild what they had, but she knew she couldn't stay stuck in the past. The turning point came during a support group meeting, when Emma was asked a simple but profound question: "What does happiness look like for you?" For the first time, Emma allowed herself to envision a future unburdened by pain. Whether it included Tyler or not, she wasn't sure. But she knew one thing: she deserved happiness, however it might come. Before we continue, if you're finding Emma's story as captivating as we are, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more stories like this one, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. One evening, Emma invited Tyler over to talk. She wasn't sure what she wanted to say, but she knew they needed an honest conversation. Sitting across from each other in the living room, Emma spoke first. "Tyler, I've seen the changes you've made. I can tell you're trying, and I appreciate that, but I'm still not sure if I can forgive you." He nodded, his expression somber. "I don't expect you to. I just want you to know that I'm not giving up on us." Emma sighed. "I need to know why. Why did you do it? Was I not enough?" His eyes filled with regret as he shook his head. "It was never about you, Emma. You're more than enough. I was the one who felt lost. I guess Madison was she was a distraction, a way to escape my own insecurities. It wasn't love, and it wasn't worth losing you over." His honesty hit Emma hard. For the first time, she saw past her anger and into the deeper issues that had plagued their marriage. She wasn't ready to forgive him, but she also wasn't ready to walk away entirely. The weeks that followed were a roller coaster of emotions. Emma and Tyler agreed to attend couples therapy, a decision that brought them face to face with their deepest fears and insecurities. It wasn't easy. There were tears, arguments, and moments where Emma thought about giving up, but there were also small breakthroughs, glimmers of hope that maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild. Emma and Tyler's decision to attend couples therapy marked a turning point, but it wasn't a magical fix. Each session was an emotional battleground, uncovering wounds neither of them realized were so deep. The therapist, a calm but firm woman named Dr. Klein, guided them through their pain with unflinching honesty. One session, in particular, stood out. "You've both been hurt in different ways," Dr. Klein said, her voice steady. "Emma, you feel betrayed, and rightfully so. Tyler, you're grappling with the consequences of your actions and the realization that your choices might have permanently altered your relationship. But if you want to move forward, together or apart, you both need to confront the root of these feelings." Emma's hands clenched the tissue in her lap. "I just don't understand how he could do this. How he could look me in the eye every day and still lie to me." Tyler's head hung low. "I lied to myself too," he admitted, his voice thick with guilt. "I convinced myself it wasn't serious, that it didn't mean anything, but I knew, deep down, that I was destroying us." The weight of his words hung in the air. For the first time, Emma saw a glimpse of the man she married, the man who had made a terrible mistake, but was willing to face it head-on. Outside of therapy, life continued. Emma threw herself into work, finding solace in the creative process. She started jogging in the mornings with Willow, her rescue dog, the rhythmic pounding of her feet against the pavement, giving her a sense of control she desperately needed. Tyler, meanwhile, continued his solo therapy sessions and started volunteering at a local youth program, teaching kids about construction. It was his way of channeling his energy into something meaningful, of proving to himself, and Emma, that he could be better. But just as things seemed to be settling into a rhythm, a new challenge emerged. Madison wasn't as far removed from their lives as Emma had hoped. One evening, Emma received an email from Madison. The subject line simply read, "Closure against her better judgment." Emma opened it. The message was long and filled with emotional apologies, but one line stood out. "Tyler and I both made mistakes, but I want you to know that he cared for me too." Emma's stomach churned. Was this Madison's way of planting doubt, of undermining the progress she and Tyler had made? She couldn't be sure, but it reopened old wounds Emma thought were beginning to heal. That night, Emma confronted Tyler. She showed him the email, her voice trembling with anger. "Did you care for her? Did she mean anything to you?" Tyler looked genuinely stunned. "Emma, no. She didn't mean anything. I swear it was a mistake, a distraction, but it was never love." "Then why would she say this?" Emma pressed, her voice breaking. "Why would she try to make me question everything all over again?" "I don't know," Tyler admitted, running a hand through his hair. "But I'll talk to her. I'll make it clear that she needs to leave us alone." The next day, Tyler met with Madison at a neutral location, a coffee shop, far from their usual haunts. Emma didn't want him to go, but Tyler insisted it was the only way to close this chapter for good. When Tyler returned, he looked shaken. "She apologized," he said, sitting across from Emma at the kitchen table. "She said she didn't mean to cause trouble, but I think she's struggling. She's lost her job and her reputation because of this." Emma's expression hardened. "That's not my problem, Tyler. She made her choices just like you did. She doesn't get to play the victim now." Tyler nodded, understanding Emma's anger. "I told her to stay away, that I'm committed to fixing things with you." She agreed. Emma wanted to believe him, but trust didn't come easily anymore. "I hope for your sake she keeps her word." The encounter with Madison brought everything to a boiling point. Emma and Tyler's progress was suddenly under scrutiny again, and Emma found herself questioning if they could ever truly move forward. The tension reached its peak during a heated argument one evening. "I'm trying, Emma," Tyler said, his voice rising in frustration. "I've done everything you've asked. Therapy, cutting ties with Madison, giving you space. What more do you want from me? Emma shot back. I want to feel like I can trust you again. But every time I start to believe it's possible, something happens that rips it all apart. The room fell silent, both of them breathing heavily, the weight of their emotions filling the space. Finally, Tyler spoke, his tone softer. I know I can't undo what I've done, but I also know that I don't want to lose you. If it takes the rest of my life to prove that to you, I'll do it. Emma didn't respond right away. Instead, she walked to the window, staring out at the streetlights below. Part of her wanted to believe him, to give him the second chance he was so desperate for. But another part of her feared it would only lead to more pain. The following week, Dr. Klein suggested an exercise that would test their progress. She asked each of them to write a letter to the other, detailing their hopes, fears, and what they needed to move forward. The letters would be read aloud during their next session. When the day came, both Emma and Tyler were visibly nervous. Dr. Klein nodded for Tyler to go first. He unfolded his letter, his hands shaking slightly. Emma, he began, I know I've hurt you in ways I can never fully understand. I hate myself for what I did. But more than that, I hate the thought of losing you. You've been my anchor, my best friend, my everything. I want to spend the rest of my life making up for the pain I caused. I don't expect you to forgive me easily, but I hope you'll let me show you that I can be the man you deserve. His voice broke on the last word, and Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes. She took a deep breath and opened her own letter. Tyler, she read, her voice steady but emotional. I've spent so much time asking myself if I can forgive you, if I can ever trust you again. The truth is, I don't know. But I do know that I miss the man I thought you were, the man I hope you can be again. If we're going to move forward, I need to see that you're committed not just to me, but to yourself, to becoming someone worthy of trust and love. I want to believe in us, but I need time to heal. As she finished, the room was silent, except for the sound of her tears hitting the paper. Dr. Klein nodded approvingly. This is progress, she said. It's not easy to be this vulnerable, but it's necessary if you want to rebuild. That session marked a turning point. For the first time, Emma allowed herself to entertain the idea of forgiveness, not because Tyler had earned it yet, but because she realized she wanted to heal for her own sake. Their journey was far from over, but they had taken a crucial step toward the climax of their story, a moment that would determine whether their love could withstand the ultimate test. The weeks that followed the letters exercise were a roller coaster. Emma and Tyler had their good days, where the glimmers of their old connection resurfaced, and their bad days, where the weight of the betrayal loomed over every interaction. Each step forward felt like walking on a tightrope, the tension of the past threatening to pull them down at any moment. But then came a phone call that would shake their fragile progress. It was a Wednesday evening when Emma's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She was in the middle of watching a documentary with Lauren, attempting to enjoy a rare night of distraction. The caller ID showed an unknown number, and Emma hesitated before answering. Hello? She said cautiously. Emma, it's Madison. The voice on the other end replied. Emma's stomach dropped. What do you want, Madison? Emma's tone was sharp, defensive. She had no interest in hearing more apologies or excuses. There's something you need to know, Madison said, her voice trembling slightly. I've been trying to move on, but Tyler? He's been contacting me. Emma froze. What are you talking about? He's been texting me, Madison continued. Just last week, he asked if we could meet. I thought he was serious about fixing things with you, but clearly... Stop, Emma cut her off, her voice icy. Send me the messages, all of them. Madison hesitated, but eventually agreed. Within minutes, Emma's phone buzzed again with screenshots. Her heart pounded as she opened them. The messages were brief, but damning. Tyler had reached out, asking Madison how she was doing, and suggesting they talk in person. It wasn't overtly romantic, but it was a clear breach of the boundaries they'd set. Emma's hands shook as she forwarded the screenshots to Tyler with a single message. We need to talk now. Tyler arrived at Lauren's house within the hour. His face was pale, and his body language was defensive from the moment he stepped inside. Emma wasted no time, thrusting her phone at him. Explain this, she demanded, her voice trembling with rage. Tyler glanced at the screen and let out a frustrated sigh. Emma, it's not what you think. Don't you dare! Emma snapped, her eyes blazing. Don't you dare tell me this is innocent. You promised me, Tyler. You promised me you'd cut ties with her. I did, he insisted. I only reached out because I thought she was struggling. I wasn't trying to start anything, I felt guilty. Guilty? Emma repeated, her voice dripping with disbelief. You betrayed me, and now you're more worried about her feelings than mine. That's not what I meant, Tyler shouted, his frustration boiling over. I just wanted to make sure she was okay. It was a mistake, I see that now. A mistake? Emma's voice cracked as tears filled her eyes. Everything you've done has been a mistake, Tyler. How many more am I supposed to forgive? The argument lasted for hours, spiraling into accusations, tears, and painful silences. By the time Tyler left, both of them were emotionally drained. Emma was left questioning everything. Was he truly committed to fixing their marriage, or was he just going through the motions to ease his own guilt? The next day, Emma skipped therapy. She needed time to think, away from Tyler and the endless cycle of apologies and excuses. She went for a long hike with Willow, hoping the fresh air would clear her mind. But no matter how far she walked, the weight of Tyler's actions followed her like a shadow. That evening, Emma sat down with Lauren to talk things through. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Emma admitted, her voice heavy with defeat. Every time I start to believe in him, he finds a new way to break my trust. Lauren reached out, squeezing Emma's hand. You've been more patient than anyone else would be in your shoes, but maybe it's time to ask yourself, what are you holding on to? Is it him? Or is it the idea of who he used to be? The question lingered in Emma's mind, long after Lauren had gone to bed. A few days later, Emma and Tyler met at Dr. Klein's office for what would be their most intense session. Yet Emma laid everything on the table. The messages, the broken promises, and her growing doubts about whether their marriage could survive. Dr. Klein listened carefully, her expression calm, but serious. Tyler, this was a breach of trust, plain and simple. Even if your intentions weren't romantic, you crossed a line. Why? Tyler's shoulders slumped. I don't know, he admitted, his voice filled with shame. I guess part of me felt responsible for what happened to Madison. I thought I could fix things somehow, but I realize now that I was just making everything worse. And Emma, Dr. Klein said, turning to her, how does this affect your view of the future? Emma hesitated, her voice trembling as she spoke. I don't know if I can keep doing this. I've tried to be patient, to give him a chance, but every time I think we're making progress, he does something to tear it all down. I'm exhausted. Dr. Klein nodded. It's okay to feel that way. This process is hard, and there are no guarantees. But the question you need to ask yourselves is this. Do you want to keep fighting for this marriage, or is it time to let go? The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. For the next week, Emma and Tyler took a break from therapy. To reflect on their decision, Emma spent her time journaling, pouring her emotions onto the page in an attempt to find clarity. Tyler continued his volunteer work, hoping to prove, to himself as much as to Emma, that he was capable of change. When they finally reconvened at Dr. Klein's office, both of them looked more composed, though the tension between them was still palpable. I've made my decision, Emma said, her voice steady. I want to separate, at least for now. Tyler's face fell, but he nodded, his expression resigned. I understand, he said quietly. I don't want to lose you, but I also don't want to keep hurting you. Dr. Klein guided them through the logistics of their separation, emphasizing the importance of communication and setting clear boundaries. It was a painful process, but one that gave Emma a sense of relief she hadn't felt in months. In the weeks that followed, Emma began to rediscover herself. She moved into a new apartment, one filled with natural light and plants that she carefully tended. She started painting again, a hobby she'd abandoned years ago, and found joy in creating something beautiful out of her pain. Tyler, meanwhile, continued his journey of self-improvement. He stayed in therapy, focusing on understanding his actions and rebuilding his sense of self-worth. He respected Emma's decision to separate and gave her the space she needed, though he never stopped hoping for a second chance. One evening, Emma sat on her balcony, watching the sunset with Willow by her side. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. Her journey was far from over, but for the first time, she felt like she was in control of her own story. Emma's decision to separate from Tyler wasn't just a moment of clarity, it was a shift in her entire perspective. She had spent so much of her life tied to the idea of what their marriage should be that she hadn't realized how much of herself she had lost along the way. Now, she was determined to find that person again, no matter how painful the process might be. A month into the separation, Emma's life had settled into a rhythm. Her mornings were spent jogging with Willow through the park, her afternoons focused on her design projects, and her evenings devoted to journaling or painting. But despite her growing independence, the shadow of her past still lingered. One evening, as Emma was organizing her apartment, she stumbled upon an old box of photos and mementos from her and Tyler's early days. The pictures showed them laughing at the beach, sharing ice cream cones, and dancing at their wedding. For a moment, Emma let herself get lost in the memories. They had been happy once. Genuinely happy. What had gone so wrong? As she flipped through the photos, a wave of emotions hit her. Anger, sadness, regret, and, unexpectedly, a small glimmer of hope. Could that happiness ever be reclaimed, or was it gone forever? Meanwhile, Tyler was grappling with his own demons. The separation had forced him to confront the full weight of his mistakes. Without Emma's steady presence, he felt untethered, but he also recognized that this was his chance to grow. He doubled down on his therapy sessions and poured his energy into the youth program he had started volunteering for. Helping others gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. But no matter how much progress Tyler made, one thought continued to haunt him. Was it too late to fix what he had broken? The turning point came during an unexpected encounter. Emma was at a local art gallery, showcasing some of her work at a community exhibit. It was a small event, but it was significant for Emma, a symbol of her reclaiming her identity and passions. As she stood by her paintings, chatting with visitors, she spotted a familiar figure across the room. Tyler. He was standing awkwardly near the entrance, clearly unsure whether he should approach. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't invited him, but part of her wasn't surprised to see him there. Taking a deep breath, Emma decided to approach him. "Tyler," she said, her voice neutral. "What are you doing here?" "I heard about the exhibit through Lauren," he admitted, his eyes scanning the room nervously. "I wanted to see your work. I hope that's okay." Emma hesitated, then nodded. "It's fine. Come on, I'll show you." As they walked through the gallery, Emma explained the inspiration behind her pieces, abstract paintings that reflected her journey of healing and self-discovery. Tyler listened intently, his admiration for her evident in his expression. "You've always been talented," he said softly. "But this is incredible, Emma." "Thank you," she replied, her tone guarded. "I've put a lot of myself into these." "I can see that," Tyler said. "And I'm so proud of you." Emma didn't respond immediately. Instead, she studied his face, searching for sincerity. For the first time in months, she saw the Tyler she had fallen in love with, the one who believed in her, supported her, and genuinely wanted the best for her. But she also couldn't forget the pain he had caused. After the exhibit, Emma and Tyler ended up at a nearby cafe. It wasn't planned, but neither of them was ready to say goodbye just yet. As they sipped their coffee, the conversation turned to their separation. "I've been thinking a lot," Tyler said, breaking the silence. "About us. About what I did. And I know I don't deserve another chance, but I want one. Not because I miss the life we had, but because I believe we can build something better. Something honest." Emma looked at him, her emotions a whirlwind. She wanted to believe him, but trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. "Tyler, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I'm still figuring out who I am without us." "I understand," Tyler said, his voice steady. "And I don't want to rush you, but I'm not giving up, Emma. Not on you, and not on us." The intensity of his words hung in the air. Emma felt a mix of hope and fear, unsure of what the future held. The next few weeks were a delicate dance. Tyler gave Emma the space she needed, but remained present in her life in small, meaningful ways. He sent her thoughtful texts, asking about her work and checking in on Willow. He even surprised her by anonymously purchasing one of her paintings from the gallery, leaving a simple note. "Your art deserves to be celebrated." Emma found herself softening, though she wasn't ready to admit it. She could see the effort Tyler was making, but her guard remained up. She had come too far to risk losing herself again. The climax of their story came during a family gathering at Diane's house. Emma had been reluctant to attend, but Diane insisted, and Emma didn't have the heart to say no. To her surprise, Tyler was there too, though he kept his distance out of respect for Emma's boundaries. As the evening wore on, the tension between them became impossible to ignore. It all came to a head when Diane, oblivious to their separation, gave a heartfelt toast. "To Emma and Tyler," she said, raising her glass. "You two have always been the heart of this family. Your love inspires us all." The room erupted in applause, but Emma felt like she couldn't breathe. She excused herself and stepped out onto the porch, her emotions swirling. A few minutes later, Tyler joined her. "Emma," he said softly, "I know this is hard for you, for both of us, but I meant what I said. I'm not giving up. I'll keep fighting for you, for us, for as long as it takes." Emma turned to face him, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm scared, Tyler. I'm scared of letting you in again, and getting hurt. I don't know if I can survive that." "I'm scared too," Tyler admitted, "but I'm willing to take that risk, if it means having another chance with you." For a long moment, they stood in silence, the weight of their emotions hanging between them. Finally, Emma spoke. "If we do this, it has to be different. No more lies. No more taking each other for granted." "It will be," Tyler promised. "I swear to you, Emma." That night marked the beginning of a new chapter for Emma and Tyler. It wasn't a perfect resolution. There were still scars, still moments of doubt. But for the first time in a long time, they felt a sense of hope. They would take it one day at a time, rebuilding their relationship brick by brick, and while the road ahead was uncertain, they were willing to face it together. As Emma and Tyler cautiously stepped into the uncharted territory of rebuilding their relationship, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Every conversation, every glance, every moment carried the weight of their shared history and the fragile hope of what might come next. But just as they began to find their footing, a new storm was brewing, one that threatened to destroy everything they were trying to rebuild. It began with a message. Emma was at work, reviewing a client's design portfolio, when her phone buzzed. The notification was from an unknown number. She frowned, hesitating for a moment before opening it. The text was simple but chilling. "You deserve to know the truth about Tyler." Attached was a photo, one of Tyler and Madison. It wasn't recent, Emma realized immediately. It was from the height of their affair. The two of them sitting close together at a bar. Tyler was leaning in, his hand resting on Madison's knee, both of them smiling, as though they didn't have a care in the world. Emma's stomach turned. She knew this photo wasn't new, but seeing it now, just as she was starting to let Tyler back in, was like a punch to the gut. Who would send this? And why now? Emma showed Tyler the text that evening, her emotions oscillating between anger and fear. "Do you recognize this number?" she demanded, holding her phone out to him. Tyler's brow furrowed as he studied the screen. "No," he said, his voice laced with confusion. "I have no idea who this is." "Then why are they sending me this?" Emma's voice trembled. "Why now, when we're finally trying to move forward?" Tyler sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Emma, I don't know. But whoever it is, they're trying to sabotage us. Please, don't let them win." But the damage was already done. That night, Emma couldn't shake the image of the photo. It wasn't just about the past. It was a reminder of how deeply Tyler's betrayal had scarred her. The next day, Emma decided to take matters into her own hands. She reached out to Lauren, who had always been her rock during the darkest moments. Over coffee, Emma showed her the text and photo. "This feels deliberate," Emma said, her voice heavy with frustration. "Someone wants to hurt us." Lauren studied the photo, her jaw tightening. "It could be Madison," she suggested. "Maybe she's not as out of the picture as Tyler says she is." Emma nodded, the thought crossing her mind as well. "I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I need answers." Lauren placed a reassuring hand on Emma's. "Then let's get them. You deserve to know who's behind this." Emma's suspicions were confirmed that evening, when another message arrived. This time more explicit. Tyler lied to you before he's lying to you now. Don't be a fool. Attached was another photo. This one a screenshot of a message exchange. It appeared to be a conversation between Tyler and Madison, with him asking how she was doing, and whether they could meet to talk. Emma confronted Tyler immediately. You told me you stopped talking to her, she said, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and betrayal. Was that a lie too? Tyler stared at the screen, his expression a mixture of shock and frustration. Emma, I swear, I didn't send these. Someone's trying to manipulate you. How am I supposed to believe that? Emma shot back. You've lied to me before, Tyler. How do I know this isn't just more of the same? I'll prove it, Tyler said, his voice firm. Let me contact the phone company, hire a tech expert. Whatever it takes, I'll show you this isn't me. Over the next few days, Tyler did exactly that. He hired a cybersecurity expert to trace the messages, desperate to clear his name. Emma, meanwhile, tried to focus on her work, but the tension between them was impossible to ignore. When the results came in, Tyler shared them with Emma immediately. The messages, it turned out, hadn't come from Tyler's phone at all. They had been fabricated, sent from a burner number with the sole purpose of sowing doubt. It's Madison, the expert said confidently. Or someone close to her. They're using these to create chaos. With the truth finally revealed, Emma and Tyler sat down together, the weight of the situation hanging heavy between them. She won't stop, Emma said quietly. She's determined to ruin us. She's desperate, Tyler replied. She's lost everything, and now she wants to drag us down with her. Emma nodded, her resolve hardening. Then we need to put an end to this together. The final confrontation came a few days later. Emma and Tyler decided to meet with Madison in person, choosing a neutral location, a park near her apartment. When Madison arrived, her expression was a mix of defiance and nervousness. What do you want? She asked, crossing her arms. We know what you've been doing, Emma said, her voice steady but firm. The messages, the photos, it all stops now. Madison scoffed. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to us, Tyler interjected, his tone sharp. We traced everything back to you. We have proof. Madison's bravado faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. So what if I did? Do you really think you can fix things after what he did to you, Emma? He'll never change. That's not for you to decide, Emma said, her eyes blazing. You've done enough damage, Madison. Leave us alone, or we'll take legal action. Madison stared at them, her confidence crumbling under Emma's unwavering gaze. Finally, she let out a bitter laugh. Fine, you win, but don't come crying to me when he breaks your heart again. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Emma and Tyler standing together in the fading light. The confrontation, while painful, marked the beginning of the end. With Madison finally out of the picture, Emma and Tyler were free to focus on their healing without interference. It wasn't an easy process. Trust took time to rebuild, but for the first time, they felt like they were on the same team. Emma still had moments of doubt, and Tyler still had to prove himself every day, but they were learning to communicate in ways they never had before. Slowly but surely, they began to find their way back to each other. With Madison finally out of their lives, Emma and Tyler faced their most crucial test yet. The obstacles they had overcome, betrayal, mistrust, and manipulation, had left scars that would never fully fade. But now, the question loomed. Could they truly rebuild from the rubble, or were they simply delaying the inevitable? The first real test came during a counseling session, when Dr. Klein asked them both a pointed question. Why are you still here? Why are you both still fighting for this marriage? Emma's response was immediate. Because I loved him. Because I still see the good in him, even when I wish I didn't. And because I owe it to myself to try, to see if what we had can be saved. Her voice faltered, but she continued. But I'm also here for me, for closure. If nothing else, I don't want to look back and wonder what could have happened if I'd tried harder. Tyler's answer came after a long pause, his voice heavy with emotion. Because Emma is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Because losing her made me realize just how much I took her for granted. And because I want to be better, not just for her, but for myself. It was a moment of raw honesty, one that brought them closer than they'd been in months. but it also underscored just how much work lay ahead. As they continued their therapy sessions, Emma and Tyler began to tackle the deeper issues that had plagued their relationship long before the affair. They confronted the unspoken resentments, the moments of neglect, and the ways they had both contributed to the distance that had grown between them. One evening, after an especially emotional session, Emma turned to Tyler as they sat in the car. "Do you think we would have ended up here if Madison hadn't come along?" Tyler hesitated, then shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe not. But I think we were already headed in the wrong direction. Madison was just the catalyst." Emma nodded, her heart heavy. "I hate that it took something so painful to make us face the truth." "So do I," Tyler admitted. "But I'm grateful for this chance to make things right." The pivotal moment came during a family gathering at Diane's house, an eerily similar setting to the one that had sparked so much tension before. This time, however, Emma and Tyler were prepared. As Diane made her toast, praising their resilience and love, Emma felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She glanced at Tyler, who gave her a small, reassuring smile. It wasn't the grand romantic gesture she might have once expected, but it was genuine, a sign of the quiet, steady progress they were making. After the toast, Tyler pulled Emma aside to a quiet corner of the backyard. "I know I've said this before," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "but I need you to know how much I appreciate you, not just for giving me another chance, but for being strong enough to fight for yourself." Emma studied his face, her heart torn between the love she still felt and the fear that had never quite left. "I'm not fighting for you, Tyler," she said softly. "I'm fighting for me, for us, maybe, but mostly for me." He nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. "And that's exactly why I'm fighting too." As the months passed, Emma and Tyler continued to rebuild their lives, both individually and together. Emma's art began to gain more recognition, with her pieces featured in local galleries and even a regional exhibit. She poured her emotions into her work, using it as a way to process her pain and find clarity. Tyler, meanwhile, expanded his role at the youth program, mentoring kids and teaching them valuable skills. It became a source of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in years, and it helped him rediscover a sense of purpose beyond his relationship. But the road to recovery was far from smooth. There were still arguments, moments of doubt, and nights when Emma wondered if she'd made the right choice in staying. And yet, each time she questioned their progress, Tyler would show her, through actions, not words, that he was committed to earning back her trust. The true test of their progress came during an unexpected encounter. Emma was at a cafe, working on her laptop, when she spotted Madison sitting at a nearby table. Her initial reaction was a mix of anger and anxiety, but she quickly reminded herself of the boundaries she had set. Madison, however, noticed Emma and approached her cautiously. "Emma," she said, her voice tentative, "can we talk?" Emma's first instinct was to shut her down, but something in Madison's expression gave her pause. Reluctantly, she nodded. "Make it quick." Madison sat across from her, her demeanor surprisingly subdued. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything I know, I've caused you a lot of pain, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to hear it from me." Emma studied her, searching for any hint of manipulation or ulterior motives, but Madison's apology seemed genuine, perhaps even cathartic for both of them. "Thank you," Emma said finally. "I appreciate that, but I think it's best if this is the last time we see each other." Madison nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I understand. I hope you find happiness, Emma." As Madison walked away, Emma felt an unexpected sense of closure. It wasn't forgiveness. She wasn't ready for that, but it was enough to finally let go of the anger that had weighed her down for so long. That evening, Emma told Tyler about the encounter. He listened intently, his expression a mixture of concern and admiration. "You didn't have to talk to her," he said, "but I'm glad you did. You deserve to hear that apology." Emma nodded. "I think I needed it more than I realized, not for her, for me." Tyler reached for her hand, his touch gentle but firm. "You've been so strong through all of this, Emma. I don't know how I got so lucky." She met his gaze, a small smile playing at her lips. "It's not luck, Tyler. It's a choice, one I'm still making every day." The climax of their story wasn't a dramatic, tear-filled reunion or a grand gesture of love. It was the quiet understanding that their journey was ongoing, that their relationship was a work in progress, and that the real victory lay in their willingness to keep trying. For Emma, the most significant turning point wasn't about Tyler or their marriage. It was about rediscovering her own strength. She had faced heartbreak, betrayal, and uncertainty, yet she had emerged on the other side with a clearer sense of who she was and what she wanted. And for Tyler, the greatest lesson was learning to value what he had, before it was too late. He had made mistakes, ones that nearly cost him everything, but he had also found redemption in his willingness to change. As they sat together on their balcony that night, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, Emma leaned her head on Tyler's shoulder. For the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace, not because everything was perfect, but because they were finally moving forward. Emma and Tyler's journey was never going to be wrapped up in a neat little bow. Life doesn't work that way, but as the months passed after the climactic confrontation with Madison, their lives began to settle into a new rhythm, one defined not by perfection, but by effort, honesty, and growth. The first sign of real progress came during a dinner at Emma's new apartment. It was small and cozy, decorated with her artwork, and dotted with plants she had lovingly nurtured. Tyler had come over to help fix a leaky faucet, but the evening turned into something more. As they sat down to eat, Tyler looked around the apartment and smiled. "This place feels like you," he said. "It's peaceful, creative, it's you." Emma appreciated the sentiment, but she didn't let herself get swept away. "I like it," she replied simply. "It's a good space for me." Tyler nodded, understanding what she wasn't saying. This wasn't about them, it was about her, and he respected that. Their counseling sessions continued, though with less frequency. Dr. Klein eventually suggested they transition to individual therapy, a sign that their joint sessions had served their purpose. Emma, who had initially resisted the idea of therapy altogether, found herself looking forward to her weekly appointments. They had become a place where she could reflect on her own growth, independent of her relationship with Tyler. During one session, Dr. Klein asked her, "What do you see for your future, Emma?" Emma paused, considering the question. "I see myself happy," she said finally. "Whether that's with Tyler or on my own, I'm not sure, but I know I'll be okay either way." It was a turning point, not because she had made a decision about Tyler, but because she had made peace with the idea that her happiness didn't depend on anyone else. Tyler, too, was changing in profound ways. His volunteer work expanded into a full-time position at the youth program, where he became a mentor to at-risk teens. For the first time in years, he felt like he was contributing to something meaningful, something that wasn't just about him. One afternoon, he invited Emma to visit the program. She was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed, watching Tyler interact with the kids, teaching them how to use tools, encouraging their ideas, and sharing his own story of mistakes and redemption. Emma saw a side of him she hadn't seen in years. He was patient, kind, and genuinely invested in their success. Afterward, as they walked back to her car, Tyler turned to her. "Thank you for coming," he said. "It means a lot to me." Emma smiled, a small but genuine one. "You're doing good work, Tyler. I'm proud of you." The final confrontation with their past came unexpectedly. Emma received a letter from Madison. It was brief, apologetic, and final. In it, Madison admitted to her mistakes, acknowledged the pain she had caused, and promised to leave them alone for good. Emma didn't share the letter with Tyler right away. Instead, she sat with it, letting the words sink in. By the time she showed it to him, she had already decided how she felt about it. "I think this is the closure I needed," she told him. "It doesn't erase what happened, but it helps." Tyler nodded, his expression solemn. "I'm glad you deserve peace, Emma." In the months that followed, Emma and Tyler began to redefine their relationship. They spent time together, but kept their independence. They laughed more, argued less, and learned to communicate in ways they hadn't before. One evening, as they walked through the park with Willow, Tyler hesitated before speaking. "Emma," he began, his voice unsure, "do you think we'll ever get back to where we were?" Emma thought for a moment, then shook her head. "No," she said honestly. But maybe that's okay. Maybe where we're going is better. Tyler smiled at her answer, a mix of hope and acceptance in his eyes. I'd like that. The story's final moments aren't about grand gestures or sweeping declarations of love. They're about small, meaningful choices, the kind that build a life, one day at a time. For Emma, the greatest victory wasn't about salvaging her marriage. It was about rediscovering herself. She had faced heartbreak, betrayal, and uncertainty, and come out stronger for it. Her art flourished, her friendships deepened, and she found a sense of peace she hadn't thought possible. For Tyler, the journey was about redemption. He learned the hard way that love isn't about grand promises. It's about showing up, every single day, and proving that you're worthy of the trust you've been given. His work with the youth program became a cornerstone of his new life, a way to give back and create something meaningful. One evening, as they sat on Emma's balcony watching the sunset, Tyler reached for her hand. "I know we still have a long way to go," he said quietly, "but I'm grateful for every step we've taken." Emma squeezed his hand, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Me too," she replied, "and whatever happens next, I know we'll be okay." Because at the end of the day, their story wasn't about the perfect ending. It was about the journey, messy, painful, and beautiful in its own way. They had faced their worst moments and come out the other side, not unscathed, but stronger for the scars they carried. And that's where we'll leave this story. If you enjoyed Emma and Tyler's journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.